Assalamualaikum and hello to everyone. I'm Helmi Sahari from HSC Engineering Sdn Bhd. Today we are having a video presentation on the pre-contract flowchart. And this flowchart will be an explanation on the process flow during the pre-contract stage for typical tender process. This flowchart is the typical flowchart normally used by a typical construction company. First of all, let us go through the main purpose of this flowchart presentation. We want to brief all departments in the construction company on their roles and responsibility during the pre-contract stage. And with this, we want to clearly define the coordination and synchronization among the departments in a construction company. This also will become the manual and guideline for new staff and also for the existing staff for the flow to move forward during the tendering process. We want to ensure that all the staff in the contract department and the construction company, other departments, will know what to do during the tender process. And we also want to produce a quality submission in order to increase the chances to win the contract. Okay, this presentation is divided into 4 sections. The first section is section A, invitation to tender process flow. Section B is the tender document process flow. Section C is the tender process flow towards the tender deadline. And section D is the item for tender presentation slides. The first section, section A, is the overall process flow for the invitation, from the invitation to tender until the submission of the tender. So this will be a very brief of what will happen throughout the entire tender stage process. Okay, the first of all, this is the process flow for the construction company who is bidding for the project. Okay. We have here the responsibility, the activity involved, and the interface. First of all, the client will give an invitation letter to the construction company. And they will also be giving a tender review form to the construction company. Therefore, the MD or the project director or the contract manager of the construction company will have to give a confirmation back to the client by giving the authorized personnel of them for them to reply their interest to bid in the project. And from there, the account department will start preparing the tender fee to submit to the client. And once the tender fee has been submitted, the contract department will arrange to collect the tender document from the client office. And then the client will inform the contract department when is the site visit, and the person in charge from the project department or the contract department will go to the site visit and take the site photos. And after that, once the site photos have been taken, the contract manager and the contract department will start the process of doing the tender pricing. And they will do the taking off of the quantity given in the drawings, and they will do a comparison of the quantity given in the drawing and the quantity given in the bill of quantity in the tender. And after that, the responsibility will go to the contract and project department to ask for quotation from the subcontractor. They will ask the quotation from the supplier for any machinery that need to be used for this project. So whatever that is required for the machinery, material, or the manpower, or the work that need to be subcontract to the specialist or the subcontractor, so they have to ask for quotation. So in also same like they will to give the request for information or request for proposal. And after that, Once all the document, the quotation has been received and the pricing has been put in, the contract manager need to give the pricing review to the managing director. And once the contract department fill in the tender document and the tender pricing in the BQ, they will get the approval from the managing director. And then once, if there is no comment from the managing director, if there is any comment, the contract department and the contract manager have to review back the pricing, go back at the pricing review, and again fill in the tender document for whatever the changes. And then again, they have to seek for the approval from the managing director. And once the managing director give the approval, the contract department have to make a copy for retention for the contract department own copy, and the contract department will submit the original copy to the client. And once that tender has been submitted to the client, the managing director, the contract manager, or the contract department, or the tendering team have to review the interview questionnaire, whatever the questionnaire given back by the client to them, and the contract or the project department have to attend the tender interview meeting if they were called by the client. And if not, also after the tender interview meeting, they will have to reply to whatever the inquiries given by the client or the consultant team of the client. And after this, we expect at this stage there will be more than one cycle of repeating cycle at this area, where the client will call the contractor for many rounds of discussion to review the tender and the submission of the contractors. And finally, the contract will be awarded and the contract department will receive the letter of award from the client. This is the first section, where this is considered the overview of the overall. We will go a bit detailed in the next section. Okay, in section B, this is what actually happened during the tendering process at the contractor or the construction inside the construction company. So the tender document process flow will go as such. Okay, once the managing director of the construction company receive the email or the tender invitation, the managing director will email the tender invitation to the contract department. And from here, the contract department will email out the tender invitation and tender addendum to all, including the tender summary. So meaning here, once they got the tender document from the client, they will have to scan, record, and save soft copy in server by HQ, the admin or document controller. They will have to save all the document in a soft copy, where normally the client will give the document in hard copy, but now they have to save, scan, and everything into the soft copy. And this will become the tender documents in soft copy to be saved in server, and master hard copy to be printed out and hang in the tender department. And the document controller or the admin of HQ need to email notification that the document is ready. Okay. This process will continue from time to time if there is any tender addendum from the client or any addendum drawing from the client. So again, the DCC, the document controller, will need to scan the document into soft copy and to print or use the hard copy that they receive and hang it in the tender department. And then next, the DCC have to email out to all the relevant department. So this tender document will have to be emailed to the department that will involve in this tender process. The department that will involve in this tender process shall be the technical department, the contract department, the HR and account department, the purchasing department, and the planning department. It depends on the setup of the construction company. Some construction company would have a big department as what is shown here, but some construction company will have a smaller department, smaller number of department, where they might combine all these department into one single tender department. They call it tender department. It's all about the setup, but this is just an overview or a brief explanation what is the typical setup will be during the tender process. So there will be a lot of synchronization that need to be done among the department during this tender stage process. So during this tender stage process, each of the department is having their own role and responsibility. So here, this is the purpose we are having this presentation slide to briefly explain what are the role and responsibility of each of the department. This is a typical thing that should happen during the tender stage. Okay, the first is the technical department. When the technical department receives the tender document, they have to identify what are the construction methodology and the scope write-up that is required in the tender document. They are involved in the technical department. So they have to figure out what are the technical items that they need to come out. And they also should have in mind already what are the VE, that is the value engineering, or the industrial building system option that they can implement for this project. And the technical department also will start to think what is the project organization chart will look like for this project. The technical department can use the data from the previous project, the data of what are the project organization chart that they have before, whether this project is suitable to use the previous organization chart, or that is what their role and responsibility. They need to find out further from the tender document. And if they have any technical inquiry on the drawings or on the specification or in the work itself, they have to issue the request for information to client and the client consultants to clarify. And then they will come up with the project quality plan and safety plan for the technical submission. This is the first part, technical department. And the second will be the contract department. The contract department will straight away take the drawing and do the quantity taking off to ensure that the quantity that is mentioned in the BQ given in the tender document is correct. At least they have an idea that they can trust the quantity given in the BQ, so that do we want to avoid any tender or quantity, any missing quantity from the tender. And from there, the contract department also to find out in the tender document what is the amount required for the tender bond, which need to be prepared, as we explained in section A earlier. What are the tender fee to be submitted? And then also the contract department to find out in terms of their own scope in reviewing the BQ, bill of quantity, and the drawings, is there any request for information need to be submitted to the client and the consultant? And then the contract department will start to request for pricing from the subcontractor or the supplier. And then they will be the one who involved with the commercial submission. Okay, this department is having a synchronization where they have to talk to each other on any issue that need attention so that they can complete the tender submission. And the HR and account department also play a role during the tender stage, because they have to discuss with the technical department on the project org chart. Is the company having the right candidate or having the right staff for this type of project? So the feedback must be given by the technical department to the HR. If they don't have the expertise, they don't have the staff that is suitable as per the requirement in the tender, then the technical department have to inform HR, and HR need to start sourcing for the staff, and the technical department need to inform clearly to HR what are the criteria that is needed, what criteria for the staffing is needed for this project, so they can start the process of recruitment. Should they be awarded, then the HR are able to have enough time to source for the candidate. And secondly, the account department will have to issue out the check or bank draft for the tender bond for the amount required. This is the synchronization given by the contract department to the HR department, to the account department. And next, the purchasing department is to request quotation from supplier on material and equipment pricing. So these are the requirements for the purchasing department. And the purchasing department, if they already have the data in their archive, in their operational process asset, they can just take from there and feedback to the contract department. What is the pricing for example, for backhoe, or what is the pricing day rate or the monthly rate for the excavator? This is an example. So the purchasing department, either they are having it in their asset, in their records, what are the pricing, or they have to ask from the supplier for the latest pricing, because the pricing may fluctuate, and the archive or the data that they have might have been there for a long time and is not usable anymore. Okay. Next is the planning department. The planning department also play a significant role during the tender stage, because the planning department need to come up with the resource planning for the machinery, manpower, and materials. The planning department need to discuss clearly with technical department to understand, to ensure that they have the clear understand and they have the same understanding with the technical department in terms of how to plan to do the project. When they have come up with all the resource planning for the machinery, manpower, and material, they also have to come up with the work breakdown structure for the work that need to be done, the WBS for the project. And once they have the activity defined in the WBS, they need to figure out what are the resources required and what are the sequence between the activity, and they need to put in the duration for each of the activity. Once the duration has been set up, they need to come up with the program. And if they have any inquiry during the tender process, or if they found any inquiry that needs further information from the client and consultant, the planning department also need to issue the request for information. So this is my explanation on what are the synchronization that should happen during the tender stage process. If all the department are able to synchronize well during this stage, there are bigger chance that they can produce a more quality tender submission. And section C, these are also an overview of the tendering process flow towards the tender deadline. From what that I have explained in section A and section B, section C here is another explanation on overall overview of the tender process. So once the tender document received, the contract department need to come up with the tender pre-qualification checklist and tender summary. And what are the requirements for this tender will be divided into the commercial submission and also the technical submission preparation. So the commercial preparation will be done by the contract and purchasing department. The technical submission preparation will be done by the technical operation, HR, and also by the planning department. Therefore, once both of these part has been completed, the contract department, and the managing director, personal assistant, or the contract manager will compile the tender submission document. Once they have compiled, they will submit to the managing director for final review. If there is any comment, the process will have to go back to the contract department or the technical department or the planning department, and again they have to compile, and for again the managing director have to do a final review. And if this is approved, the contract manager or the managing director personal assistant will prepare the cover letter and submit the tender. So there you go, you have the what are the quick overview of what is the tender process will looks like. And then once the tender has been submitted, there are big chances that if the tender is produced in a quality manner and the pricing is produced as one of the pricing that meet the client requirement or almost near to the client requirement, the client will tend to call for tender interview. So during the tender interview, most of the time or many times that the client will ask for a tender presentation. So these are the items that we want to discuss here that can be prepared for the tender presentation slides. Okay, once the email received from MD or the directors on the tender interview, the contract department will email out the tender interview to all the related department, and this will be recorded by the document controller. And once the tender interview has been received by all the department, the notification received by all the department, these are the proposed tender presentation slide that can be done in order to present to the client. So we have here the slide number, the description, the action by which department, and the timing for this to present this slide, and who will present this presentation slide. The first is the project title. Normally it is prepared by the planning department, and the duration is only 10 seconds, and will be presented by the managing director. And including the company introduction will be done by the technical department, and the timing to present is 5 minutes and present by the managing director. And then we have the key and detailed milestone. The planning department will prepare, and the slide will be around 3 minutes. And the person in charge to present is the operation director or the project manager. And the work program will be prepared by the planning department and need to be presented for 3 minutes by the operation director. And the project background location plan also can be included, which only take 1 minute, along with the site visit photos. It's good to show the site visit photos to demonstrate to the client that the contractor understand the project well and have done his own site visit. And the operation director also will present this. And the area tabulation also, some information that can be presented will be prepared by the QS or the planning department or the contract department, only for 1 minute. And the construction sequence, zonings and sequence also prepared. This is very important. You show the zoning and the sequence of work. This will be prepared by the planning department for the presentation of 5 minutes. And this also presented by the operation director. At this area, sometimes some contractor will do an animation video to demonstrate how they will do the project. Okay. And next is the temporary setup or the logistic plan. The planning department also will prepare, and will take only 1 minute to present. And the project org chart will be prepared by the technical department, and will be presented by technical director for 1 minute. The project strategy, the project register, and the project risk register also prepared by the technical department. Each of them is 3 minute presentation by the technical director. And the safety plan also usually prepared by the technical department to be presented for 5 minutes and also presented by the technical director. And finally, as a suggestion here, we can also include the previous project construction videos or photos, and this can be presented for 5 minutes by the technical department, the technical director. And overall, the timing that we propose for the presentation slide is only 38 minutes 10 seconds. It can be more than 40 minutes. However, we have to limit it below 50 minutes because we will expect that the client will have a question Q&A session at the end for them to understand better the presentation given by the contractor. Okay, so there you go. These are the important aspect during the tender process, from the tender submission, tender receive, and then the tender process, tender submission, and the tender presentation. So as a summary and move forward from here, would like to inform that this flowchart will be guiding all the person in the related department in the tender process, and this will ensure smooth process because everybody knows what to do and they will not miss a lot of information. They are able to find to produce a better information, produce a better tender when they know what they're supposed to do. And this also will reduce the downtime or any things that is not discussed clearly during the tender process. And the flowchart also to be reviewed by all head of department together with their subordinate from time to time. And any discussion and improvement toward the flowchart to be further discussed in the inter-department meeting. So this is the roles and responsibility of the contract manager during this tender process to ensure that all the departments are working together and are talking to each other to ensure the smooth process of tender. So hopefully with this, we can get a better output from the tender process and a better chance to win the project. Okay, with that, I would like to say thank you to all for listening to this presentation. And if you like this video, you can press the like button and subscribe to our channel. And you can also visit our website in Facebook, our page in Facebook. You can visit and like our page. So thank you very much and hope this presentation will be useful to everyone. Thank you.